There was one of these Christmas things where you can grab any present out of the bag. So I went up there really quick and I grabbed the present and I had to go and I opened it up and it's a GT40. You know, I didn't even know what it was. It was just a great little car. And then when I was graduating from high school, I saw this picture of this fantastic car and I had to have it in my portfolio to get into college to design cars. And it was a GT40. Even though I may have had a model of it, you know, my collection of hundreds of cars, it was just one of those dynamic cars that I just had to have. I'm Camilo, I'm an automotive designer, and this is my 9th signature Ford GT. I think we're going to call this one Sonic Orange. As an automotive designer, you are an industrial designer. So you can do furniture design, you can do fashion design, architecture. For myself, I'm a fine artist and I love figurative painting. I like working with the models, high contrast hair, or something dynamic about her facial features or the way she does her makeup, or maybe it's just what she's wearing. If she's that dynamic, she'll leave an impression that, you know, you're not going to forget. Just like any car that I photograph or I'm going to illustrate, I usually make the car a little sleeker, a little lower, the wheels a little larger. On the Ford GTs, these I make the hips a little bit sexier, and all that works straight across the board. Just like when I'm doing an illustration or a painting of a girl, there's areas where you can tune her. You know, you make her legs a little bit longer, you make her arms a little bit thinner, you take her in just a little bit around the waist. She's still the same girl. She just looks at her absolute best.
I am a big fan of the rear end. The rear end, that's why I keep photographing the rear end. It's just so much fun to look at. There's enough entertainment there for all night. This is a lot of surface with major changes in direction. So the 4 is very controversial because this and the horizontal line of the floor crisscross. The 7 would just waterfall over it.
I'm the type of person that knows the vehicle enough. It was delivered to my studio as a project, and this includes a mid-engine car, an 85 that nobody saw. It made it very close to production before it was, you know, shoved into the back. And then the GT90, which was a futuristic approach to the GT40, and then back again for the 2002 concept car. Because I know the car very well, and I worked with my team, you know, carefully through the surfaces and the engineers and their demands, because when you're working on a vehicle like that, you and engineering are very tight. We've got the line coming up and then doing a U-turn, an acute angle, and what's happening is the headlamp is being absorbed into the black line. So we know the car very well from one end to the other, and it takes that kind of person to be able to take the vehicle to another level like the signature car. You redesign the vehicle, you readdress it, you look at all the best qualities of the vehicle, and then you enhance them. Like, let's say it has really dynamic air intakes in the front, you know, and what you want to do is like make them a little bit bigger. You don't reimagine them, they're right there. So what you do is you take the qualities that stand out and you dial them up. And if a girl has the same situation, she's like, oh my God, she's got beautiful lips. Well, let's dial them up a little bit. You know, if she's got, you know, good shading under her cheekbones, and that's a quality of her that seems to stand out, then you focus on that and you tune it. Basically, all you sit there is like, it's like you're sitting there trying to mix music. And they're sitting there with all those little knobs, moving this one up, that one down. And that's all I do, is I grab all the good parts and take the knobs and turn them up. And then I take all the bad ones and I turn them down. And by the end of the day, if you get all these things dialed up just right, you're gonna have a beautiful little symphony. But what you do is you take what they give you and you sort it out properly. And you don't know what to do with all this until, like, let's say you go to 4 years of college. You know, they teach you all about composition, rhythm, harmony, proportion, weight distribution, contrast, color. All of these things are your cards. And how you deal these cards is what's going to happen. But you have to spend at least a semester or two on each one of those programs. It's just balance. It's all about balancing what you're looking at, whether it's a design or whether it's a girl. The girl has design qualities to herself. My friends and I, Rich Brooks from the GTG, we thought it would be a great idea to do some GTs that I could introduce things that I've always wanted to do with the Ford GT that never made it from the concept car to production in other areas that we didn't get to explore as well. So when we started working on these vehicles, it was a lot of fun because there was a lot of room to grow. Colors to experiment, personalities of the vehicle that never had the opportunity to exist. So it's an exciting project every time to do something special with a Ford GT that makes it one of a kind, and it's almost like an experiment of what if we could do this? Why don't we try this? Why don't we try these colors together that we never had together? If you really could do whatever you wanted, what would you do? I'd be more than happy to address that. And if you go into that without having the right training and the exposure to the vehicle and the understanding of the surface development and how it all works together, you could really screw the car up, and I've seen it done already. Yeah, it's a dual purpose structure. A lot of cars just do all these things just for aesthetics. This is doing aero and cooling together all at once, which is fantastic. That's what makes this car so unique. I mean, it is real in every sense. People jump into this with all kinds of confidence, like, oh, I can do it, you know, yeah, and start cutting things up and moving things around. Do you know how much work it was to get it to be that well balanced as a vehicle? I mean, we explored everything. So much more advanced, you know, in the use of materials, you know, and you know, with the twin turbos instead of superchargers. It's great to see it like this because you appreciate the car so much more instead of just buying the car and being afraid of it. Now you get to see it and understand it. Without the fender and the wheel housing, you get a complete view of the whole suspension, and way into here is the turbocharger. I mean, this is incredible. It's all carbon fiber, but it's really great to be able to see all these parts like this right now. And look at these carbon fiber brakes. These are tremendous. I mean, it's a Le Mans car that's been snuck onto the street. You know, and we're talking about a serious staff of designers that have a lot of background experience and many successful vehicles. And I find it quite humorous when somebody just jumps into this thing without any kind of background like that. And they think that they're just gonna like improve the vehicle. Well, I'm more than happy to see how that would turn out, and maybe I can learn something. I mean, I knew that there was quite a bit of involvement to remove the aesthetic part of the vehicle, but I didn't think it was going to be
this much involvement. It's a lot of involvement. What I'm thinking is this going to intimidate people? Sure, we'll paint your car, we just got to strip it down enough.
There's usually no heavy engine work deeper than the supercharger or the cam cover is primarily aesthetic, but you do get an extra 100 horsepower plus the performance exhaust. You may creep it up another bit. That part of the selection menu, I leave it up to my buddy, Rich Brooks. He's the engineer, and that is his medium, and he can discuss that, with the client. A lot of times they keep throwing more stuff in it because they get excited through the process, and I want this and I want that, don't let my car get out of there without having this too. So it's exciting to see that. We have had some of them go from a supercharger to twin turbo, and the twin turbo is a serious modification, and the car can go from 550 to 1,000 horsepower, 1,200 horsepower, for the guys that need everything.
Complicated surfaces scare production people. They're like, oh no, we're not going to back that up. Because if we have a problem, yeah. Well, if you're doing one of a kind.
By that time, I had already designed this race livery. I actually had presented it to the people from Exalta as a concept, and I showed them several signature cars that I've done in the past.
But it's right here.
Yeah, because you have a diagonal going uphill with a horizontal, so it forms an X. This is an extremely brave move for us to take on this project, but for Rich and I, we've gone through so many GTs, so I think it's worth it. It's definitely another chapter in all the GT stuff that we've done. And we'll just take it from the design, the paint, and then the road.
This type of client, they like to see what it looks like finished. I do a photorealistic image from the computer that makes it look like the vehicle's already finished. They look at it, they get a solid idea of where their money's going and a very good idea of what we're going to do with their personal GT. The guys are very attached to it, or if it's a car that we purchased for the project, it's a very expensive one too, There's a lot on the line. This is an extremely expensive canvas. The car went to Road Atlanta completely all white. I started taping it up. We have to tape it to put the design on it. That's how it basically comes together.
It'd be white, black, orange, black. And this would be white, black.
My buddies, Rich Brooks, Dan from GTG, they started taking the vehicle apart.
Okay, so if you bring a girl, you can't have her put her makeup box in there because it'll turn into soup. And she'll get really mad and have a bad trip.